Hello everyone, hope everyone is well. Okay, this is the last YouTube lesson before what would have been the Easter holidays, which of course would have started on Friday. So I won't be doing another one of these for 2 weeks for politics. What I want to do in this session is basically have a discussion about backbench MPs and their role. So a backbench MP is a member of Parliament who is not on the front bench. So they're not a government minister if they're on the government's party, and if they're in the opposition, it means not on the front bench of their party. So Craig Treacy, the MP for North Warwickshire and Bedworth, for example, he's a backbench MP. He doesn't have any government job, and so he sits on the backbench in the House of Commons. So what I'd like to do, I'm not sure which is the best order really, but in your booklet there's a page, I think it's on page 18, got a picture of Craig Treacy in the middle, and around the outside it's got on what do backbench MPs do. Use a combination of the books, also find out if things like so the jobs they do is constituency work, so that means like representing local people, not having surgeries in their local area. Marcus Jones, for example, MP for Nuneaton, he used to have one in McDonald's every now and again, but he has a regular surgery. So find out the type of things they do in terms of the constituency, opening things and that type of stuff. Find out about any parliamentary debates and questions which Craig Treacy may have been involved in. If you come from outside our area, say you're one of the Coventry people, I'm pretty sure all three Coventry MPs are backbench MPs as well for the Labour Party. So perhaps you can dish out Craig Treacy and shove your person in. Find out what debates and questions they may have asked. Has Craig Treacy ever rebelled? Again, even from Coventry or Hinkley End, to find out whether your MPs rebelled, or there are a few new MPs in those areas, so they probably haven't done. Find out what committees they might be on. So do it of finding out about what they do. They did ask a question on the exam about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, talking about how effective are backbench MPs. Will they appear on the new course? I'm not entirely sure, but it's worth being prepared. And it's good to know what they do anyway. Okay, so when you've done that, what I want you to do is the page or two before that, which is on page 16. It's after all that committee work, which is about private members' bills. Now, a private members' bill basically is when a backbench MP introduces his own or her own law into Parliament. Now, if they have the support of the government on that particular bill, then they've got a good chance of it being successful. However, if it doesn't have the support of the government, then their chances of success are really small because, as we know, the government really control the process of legislation in the House of Commons. So if they don't like something, they'll try and kill it. What I'm going to do is there's a series that was on the BBC called Inside the Commons, which I've got on DVD. Obviously, I can't show you that on DVD. However, it's not on YouTube either, I've looked. It is on Daily Motion. So if you type in Daily Motion Inside the Commons, episode 2, up should pop episode 2 of Inside the Commons. I can't remember what the title of that particular film's called, but if you fast forward 20 minutes in, you'll see it then discusses private members' bills, and it shows the process which they go through to introduce a private members' bill. There's like a restriction on the amount which they can do. Then if you fast forward to 35 minutes, you'll see a Liberal Democrat. This video, by the way, was done in the final year of the coalition, so it's done in 2014. I think 2014, 2015, that kind of period. So obviously there were some Liberal Democrats then. So you see Andrew George, who is the Liberal Democrat for down in Cornwall. He actually lost his seat in 2015. Anyway, he won the lottery, if you like, to be number one for a private members' bill. And so the one he introduces, the government weren't too keen on. So you can look at number 35 minutes in. It tells you what his issue was. And then the last 10 minutes show you how Conservative MPs, with the support of the government, try to kill his piece of legislation. So it's a really good video. As I said, what they tend to do in each episode is intertwine 3 or 4 different stories. So it kind of cuts from one to the other. Hence why it's on for 10 minutes, then 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes again at the end. If let's face it, you've got nothing else to have you over the next 3 weeks, feel free to watch all of them and all the whole things of them, because they are really, really good at showing how Parliament actually works. One of the future lessons we'll do after Easter, we'll look at Prime Minister's questions, which pops up in one of these as well. So anyway, look at those bits I've specified and answer the various questions. And then there's a box which says, what does this example of a Prime Member's Bill tell us about the relationship between the backbench MP and the executive? So you need to use the family brain cell and have a think about, why do backbench MPs not have a great deal of success in these private members' bills? What it tells about the power of the government compared to backbench MPs. If you asked a question about how effective are backbench MPs, then you probably say, well, actually, these private members' bills are not particular because blah, blah, blah. Another thing to notice about them is how few of them there are and things like that. So do watch that, have a think about it, etc., etc. Okay, once you've done that, what I'd then like to do, we're thinking a bit more about how does the executive control backbench MPs, especially backbench MPs from their own party. And this is where we come into something called the whips, okay? Now, again, Inside the Commons has a nice bit on this. The first 8.43 minutes on episode 3 deals with party whips. So how do MPs physically vote? And then it talks about some MPs who've rebelled, they've voted against their government. Someone called Peter Bone pops up, he's still in Parliament. And it tells you some about the powers which they have. Then you'll notice the subheading called Rebellions by Backbench MPs, and there's a couple of questions like, what has been the general pattern? If you just go to the next page, you'll see I've actually put on a graph which shows the number of divisions, the number of votes in the House of Commons where at least one member of the government side has voted against their own government. Red is Labour, blue is Conservative, purple is Coalition. I don't have a more up-to-date one to show Theresa May's. I imagine it should be quite high on the rebellion list. But if you look at that graph, just as a general, you can see that from 1945 up until the 1970s, there were rebellions, but there weren't that many. Less than 20% of all government bills saw at least one MP rebel. In other words, 80% of bills which the government put forward saw 0 MPs from their own side voting against it. So it showed that backbench MPs basically did as they were told, essentially. And in fact, in some years, you can see there were no rebellions at all. You then see the 1970s, Labour and Conservative, where there was a much greater percent of rebellions. Okay, it went up to 35-36%, which again is not massive if you think about it. It still shows that, do some quick maths here now, Paul. 65% of all legislation, was it 75%? No, 65% of legislation saw none of their MPs rebel. But there was a greater sense of rebellion in those years. And again, that's probably due, I would speculate, to the fact that governments at that time had very small majorities. Governments at that time were dealing with things like economic crises and things of that nature. You then see this big line of blue from 79 to 97. This is the Conservatives, Mrs Thatcher, and then obviously John Major. John Major used to get heavily criticised for being weak and not controlling his own party, but actually there weren't that many rebellions against him. You then had this long period of Labour, so Tony Blair 97. Notice his first year, very few, less than 5% of bills in his first year saw one Labour MP rebel against him. I would speculate that's probably because even those more to the left, even the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, were probably just glad to have got rid of the Tories and therefore were quite supportive of Tony Blair in his first year. It's as time goes on that you get more rebellions normally. Prime ministers tend to build up poison over that time. They've sacked various people and they become more unpopular. And parties and governments that are unpopular, there's less of an incentive for a backbench MP to support them. They might think, if I support this unpopular government, I might lose my next election. Therefore, in my self-interest to vote against them on this issue and make a big hoo-ha of it in my constituency. Then we can see the coalition where there was loads of rebellion. In fact, the first year of the coalition saw nearly 45%, at least one MP rebelling. So again, I would say over time there's been more rebellions since the 70s onwards. It might be, and also the time of the government has in, you end up with more rebellions the longer they've been in power for. I would speculate that a reason perhaps why MPs are more willing to rebel these days is things like social media and stuff. They're more aware of their constituents, and their constituents are more aware of what they're up to. And so I think sometimes backbench MPs want to show their constituents that they're kind of working for them. And so they're much more keen, possibly, to rebel. That's my speculation anyway. What this graph, of course, doesn't show you is how many times were the government actually defeated in this time. So it's okay having these rebellions, but actually, how many bills did the government actually lose? Okay, I mean, a number of these might just be one MP who's voted against them. Well, if you've got a majority of 200 and one MP votes against, that doesn't really make a difference. But like in the 1970s, for example, when there was no majority for that Labour government at the end, these rebellions would have been more serious because they had such a small majority. Like under Theresa May, she had a majority of 9 thanks to the DUP. So it only needed a handful of Conservative MPs to say, actually, we're not supporting the government on this issue, and the government loses. Look at those great big losses which Theresa May had, for example, over her Brexit deal. What I will do, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, I'm pretty sure I've seen somewhere some graph which shows the size of the defeats which Theresa May had. It's the biggest defeat of a government's ever had since like 1923 or something. So I'll make a note and I'll send that PowerPoint. I'll send the thing to you. So defeats that government. Okay, and I'll see if I can find a graph that shows defeats over this time period. Not sure if I can, because I think I probably would have done it, but I'll have a look anyway. So rebellions then. So governments try to control backbench MPs through whips and stuff of that nature. But as we can see from this graph, not entirely successful all the time. And there are some questions here for you. Okay, and question 5 is find out what happened in February 2017 regarding Theresa May's budget. Okay, it's very rare for a government to face a defeat on a budget issue, but Theresa May in 2017 did. So find out what the whole hoo-ha was about. I'm actually just reading a book at the moment about Theresa May, and I've just read this bit, just as it happens, in case anyone's interested. Right, so in terms of homework, I've got an article from Politics Review on the Backbench Business Committee, which is an important way for backbench MPs to have their say. Unfortunately, it's not on Teams, but I managed to do some screenshots of it. So I'll fiddle around it to make it presentable, and I'll put that on the PowerPoint. And I've got some questions on that. There's a Politics Review article I want you all to read called How Effective Are Backbench MPs? Again, I'll make up some questions to go with that as well. And I'd also like to do an essay as well about the Constitution. Now, obviously, we've got a 2 weeks holiday, so I want these in 2 weeks. So either we're back in 2 weeks' time in college, so I can collect them in. I suspect that's not going to happen, in which case I'd like the essay to be emailed to me. Don't email it to me this week or next week, because it'll get messed up with everything else. Send it to me in 2 weeks. In fact, I'll send you a reminder to send it to me just before we're kind of due to come back. Okay, so any problems on that, let me know. Okay, as I said, Daily Motion is where the things are on. Oh, I've made a Kahoot as well. I made it last night, so I'll add that onto the email I send out. So yeah, so have a good holiday over Easter. Don't get too bored. Use the time productively. Look over all your past notes if you've got nothing else to do. Make sure you're up to date with everything. It's a good chance to do any bit of revision which you need. I still intend to do a mock exam, by the way. I'm not quite sure what college is going to do or I'm going to do. If college don't have one by the end of June, I might set you one to do anyway and give you like 2 hours to do it or something like that. So do keep revising all your stuff, please, because there will be some mocking it at some point. Okay then, so I shall look forward to getting your essays in a couple of weeks, and send me any emails, preferably this week if you get stuck on anything what we've just gone over just now. Okay.